Hey, what's up? My name is Ryan. In this video, we're going to be reviewing Villagers, but not just Villagers, also the new expansion for Villagers, Shifting Seasons. Villagers is a game you're going to be drafting cards out of a common pile. They're going to go into your hand. You're going to be placing those cards into your cities, getting more people into your village, making it bigger and bigger. Now, I'm not going to go into a complete how to play in this video because I've actually done a playthrough on the channel of Villagers Array. So if you want to check out the link up there, click on that. You actually see the whole game played. So watch that if you want to see how the whole game works in more detail. I'm just going to jump right into the review here. So I'm going to start out with my biggest positive, and that's the game is so satisfying to play. It's very fast drafting, and it's one of these games that has the slow build at first, and then just explodes the last few turns. But that's not like an hour and a half. This is a slow build, as in your first 3 rounds, you'll put down a couple of villagers. That will make, maybe take 10 minutes, 15 minutes. Then your last 2 or 3 rounds, they'll be boom, game over. You just look down, somehow you scored, 150 points. So it has this great crescendo, this great build throughout the game. Then all of a sudden, just the game end is so satisfying. Look down, see all the cool combos you made. I have a carpenter, but the carpenter activates this thing here and gets scored because of this. And I have all these hay suits here. There is so many things are intertwined in the game. It's great. But it's my biggest positive because, there's lots of games that do this whole you build, 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 and you kind of get a big empire by the end. But it gives you kind of this city builder feeling, but only 20 or 30 minutes. It gives you quite a bit of thought and cool decisions to make, but in a pretty short amount of time. Now, right on that note, I'm talking about the Shifting Seasons in particular. So the Shifting Seasons expansion, when it gets added to the base game, makes the game a turn or two longer, which I actually really like. I enjoyed the base game pretty well, 2 players, but it almost sometimes ended a turn or two sooner than you want to, which typically is a good thing in a game. It sometimes feels a little short. So if you were to compare it, I like the base game. Then once I threw in Shifting Seasons, I was like, oh, this is even better because the amount of stuff you can do on that last turn or two with the extra turns is so much more than your first 4 or 5 turns. So the game going from 4 or 5 turns to 5 or 6 turns seems to make a big difference in gameplay because you get so much more stuff out. So I like how Shifting Seasons kind of lets you see your plan come to fruition. One of the things it does is there's more cards that are going to come out throughout the game because more cards are out there. So sometimes you're kind of waiting for a card to fulfill a production chain because you can't put this card down. Could you do this or this? And sometimes you're just not going to see that card. There's a higher chance that you burn through more cards in this game that you will see the card you want. So you kind of have a higher chance of seeing your plan that you've been trying to build, your little village empire you're trying to build in front of you, actually kind of get completed. Now it is called Shifting Seasons, so I gotta tell you what that's about. So in Shifting Seasons, what you have is you have 4 seasons cards. You always have your 2 market cards or 6 stacks. You got 2 market cards that say you're going to score once here and once at the end of the game. But the 4 blank stacks now have a seasons card under them, and these are really cool. They're going to give you a bonus for all players after spring, then after summer, after autumn, after fall, and just one of those extra little strategic things. Like I kind of hinted towards earlier, what I love about this game is it gives you some good strategic decisions. It's not too long, but you have a lot of decisions to make. Like I'm holding these 4 cards. I really want a basic villager to get this one down. I think I'm going to throw away this card even though I kind of want it. Maybe I'll put it here and hopefully get it back later to put this card down. Those kind of good decisions, but now it gets even times by a whole bunch more because you see the season cards out there. It doesn't add a lot of length to the game, but you go, oh, but see in the fall, if I can be holding on to a 14-point card, I could score half the value of that card. So even though I never put it into my city, I could just discard it for 7 points. I might want to hold on to that one. So it gives you a few more factors to kind of think about. Then each season has a few different cards you can flip out. So not every game spring is going to be the same. There's multiple options for spring could be and summer could be. So it ends up with every gameplay will have a little more variance because of that. I really like the basic gameplay of Villagers, how you have the suits and you can kind of hold on to your ore suit. You can see other people are going for ore, other people are going for lumberjacks too. So you can kind of have that basic gameplay. I like how you also have the cards that people will pay you if they build it. So you see someone's building a lot of stuff in the lumberjack suit. So you might use like a blacksmith. So when they do that, or they have the hay suit, they have to pay your blacksmith and they put their stuff down. So I like all that. The expansion then adds even more cards, which is great. The more variety you get in the Amethyst, the better. I haven't gotten bored of the base game cards yet, but if you did get to the point where you were like, I've seen these same cards too much, you could throw in a clay suit. You can throw in extra variety in some of the suits, which just gives you more different strategies. In general, the suits kind of have their own focus. So the lumber suit tend to have fewer points on the cards themselves, but they have a lot of cool combos. They have a lot of things they get paid for building. The ore has a couple high value things. The hay has a bunch of, combo cards and also gives you a lot of food. So they have different things. So it's nice just to throw in the extra suits. The more you play, obviously, you might kind of want those. I know those actually add a lot to the game. Okay, so for my last positive, I do have to start out by saying a little bit negative about the base game. So the base game comes with a solo mode called the Countess mode. And I didn't love that mode. I tried it several times and I felt like there was just almost too much randomness that was out of my hand. Like I wish in most solo modes that I play, I want to be able to look back. I don't care if I lose, but I want to look back and say, you know what, I should have done this. I should have done that. I should have done that. And maybe it was just bad luck. But the ones I played against the Countess, she takes a random card once a turn, and every time I was like, that kills me. But I didn't feel like there was a lot I could do. I think I did win one, but I felt very lucky in the one I won. I don't mind lucky games. This game has an element of luck because of all the card draws. When I'm playing with another person, it's kind of fun. We have a great time. Well, I hope we don't draw this. Don't draw the grape, grower, whatever it is. Against a solo opponent, it felt a little odd to be like, oh, all right, I lost. That being said, Shifting Season adds a new solo mode called Monastery Mode. It's like a lighter, less intense solo mode. I personally like it better, which is kind of odd. Typically, I wouldn't like solo mode to just say, here's a point total to get to, see how well you do on the track. You pick a card to your city, then there's a chart that basically says, hey, depending on what round you're on, throw away in priority order one of those cards from the pile. You don't add up them. They don't really have a city. You're just tossing a card, then you refill. You draw a card the next turn, you toss a card, and you just see how many total points you play, which is kind of, I guess, the satisfying part of the core game for me is seeing my base city get really big. Also, Shifting Seasons is making the game a little longer, so the solo mode, instead of taking like 10 or 15 minutes, is more like a 20-minute experience, which again, probably just a little more like satisfying, a little longer, you get to build more of your city. Okay, so as far as negatives, these don't bother me a ton, but I do want to just throw them out so people are aware of them. First of all, as with any card drafting game, there is a lot of randomness, right? I mean, you could, and I had this happen once, just say like, man, where are the cards? I think there are 2 iterations of most cards, and there's a chance you could be looking for 6 or 10 cards, and most of them just happen to be at the bottom of the pile. And then most cards come out, but there are a chunk of cards that just won't. So there is that randomness. If that really bothers you, this is, I don't want to say a high degree of randomness, especially with the Shifting Seasons, with the extra rounds. I feel like the randomness does get minimized, but if someone draws better cards, you're going to be picking cards and flipping over a random one. I mean, it could happen. They could just get better cards. Every time you flip one, it could be not one you want. Then when it's their turn, they can always get one they want. Just be aware of it. Just with any drafting game, there is going to be that degree of, you don't know what's going to come out. That's why it's a card flipping game. And also, this is a common thing with these sort of drafting games. It's hard to know your first playthrough or two the value of cards. This doesn't really bother me again because you're going to eventually know the value of the cards, right? Eventually, you're going to play the game once or twice. But in your first playthrough, it is a little difficult because some of the cards you can have cool things like if you have a blacksmith, if someone else builds a card that needs a blacksmith, they have to pay your blacksmith. That's cool. But early in the game, you're like, well, what's worth more, this blacksmith or this card that just gives me 8 points? I don't know. As you play the game, you will have a clear idea of that. But I think it does take a couple of rounds to kind of get into the basic value. Again, thankfully, the game's pretty short, so you can just play it, deal it up, and play it again. So as far as recommendations, I love this game. I think it is awesome. It automatically shoots to the top of my list of games that are light in card drafting. I think there are a lot of light card drafting games that exist, but often they can be too light, right? They can just be like, I am picking this card. I don't love Sushi Go for this reason. I get Sushi Go works in big groups and it can be fun, but you're just like, I guess I'll take this card. There's not a whole lot of long-term plan. There's not a lot of satisfying, like, look what I've done to the game. You're just kind of like, all right, that was that round. It's fine, but this game has so many more great moments of you really want this card, or you build this cool combo, or you do something really, really awesome. I like that there's a little more strategic, okay, I might want to go for this, especially in the Shifting Seasons. You can say, okay, I want to kind of hold on to this just for winter. When winter happens, I'm going to do this, or I'm going to put down an extra house so I get more build actions. I really want to end up with about 4 build actions next turn. Now, you might think that, well, of course, it's more complicated, so there's more things to do in Sushi Go or something like that. That is true. I don't find this game overly complicated, though. This game is a pretty easy teach. I've had good success already just teaching this game, showing the people, and they really quickly are like, oh, that makes sense. I mean, the first couple rounds is a little weird. Sometimes a turn order because you do your drafting, then you clear the road, then you do the building. That might be a little clunky the first turn too, but people I've taught this to get that so quickly, and this has gone over really, really well. So if I'm just looking at the base game, I think it is an amazing and pretty light, pretty short game. I like it that it's like a short filler, but it's not like an abstract. It's not just total dumb randomness. It's like short kind of filler length, but gives you really good decisions. When you throw in the Shifting Season expansion, I think it gets even better, especially if you have 3 or 4 or 5 plays of the base game. I think this gives just that extra little layer of interest with what you want to do. It does that though without getting much more complicated. It's not way hard to teach, especially if you know the base game. You're just like, hey, cool. At the end of 4 times, you're going to trigger these extra little events, and then the game's going to last one more rounds. There's a few more cards. Just read them when they show up. And like I already mentioned, I think the shifting season expansion, at least for me, was a lot better. I really enjoyed that experience a lot more. So if you were looking at it for a solo mode in particular, I wouldn't necessarily, for me, recommend the base game Villagers, but I really like the shifting season. So if that's the reason you're kind of looking for the game is just for solo, you might want to consider getting the shifting season to have the option of 2 different modes to play. And I personally did enjoy the shifting season solo mode more. Let me know if you have any questions at all down in the comments below. I've also done a playthrough on my channel of Villagers. If you want to watch that, click that link right there. And if you like the video, of course, hitting that like button down below really helps the channel out. Also, if you want to subscribe, you'll see more reviews like this, also some solo and some group playthroughs, and some how to play videos. See ya.